Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. Today, we have a very special guest joining to talk about her journey with health, as well as in part two, we're going to get into her journey with writing a children's book on emotional intelligence, as well as her journey as a business consultant. And before I get into introducing her, first, I just want to say thank you all for tuning in and allowing us to be a part of your journey. There will be a ton of takeaways. This is an extremely valuable episode. I've had the pleasure of learning a little bit from our guest today in the past and truly enjoyed it, which is why I asked her to be on. So make sure that you all go like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts and questions to join the conversation, because I'm sure that there will be things that you either have questions about or experiencing, going through, that like this might inspire some conversation or thought or questions that you have. So make sure you reach out. And without further ado, I had the pleasure of meeting our guest about a year or so ago at a Strong Bonds event through the Kentucky National Guard. I'll get into a little bit of what Strong Bonds is here in a little bit, but met her at that. I was inspired by her story and just of having some things that she learned about health throughout her life. And on top of that, in terms of her being very close spiritually, from what I learned about her, and also having a great focus on resilience and being able to teach modules like that in the Strong Bonds event to help families in their relationships. I was inspired by that piece. Then I find out she's also a business consultant and she's also publishing a children's book, and a wife and a mother, so much more. Sara Kauffman, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me today. It was great meeting you. I'm glad our paths crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, uh, you know, I think it was close to a year ago. I'm pretty sure when
Mhm.
the last Strong Bonds event was that we went to and we met. And immediately I was like, her story would be incredible to have a conversation about, and reached out. And it took a little bit of time because there's things that in life that we're working through, but ultimately it circled back around. And I appreciate that. You followed up, and you ultimately our paths have come back together to be able to share your journey. So I appreciate you taking the time.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, so let's what inspired me, I just is that when we were going through the module that you were teaching in Strong Bonds, you were vulnerable with the class and you shared that you had had some struggles with your taking care of your health as a mom. And that now, through some of the sacrifices that you made through your health earlier in life, you're facing some things that have happened in your life, and uh, really just would love to for you to share some of that story, to kind of help connect to parents, especially younger parents, that might be in a position and need to recognize that they need to continue to focus on health.
Sure, absolutely. So my husband and I have been married for about 27 years, and we have four children, ages 21, 23, 25, and 26. So they're all just sort of launching their lives and careers, one's in college. So we do the Strong Bonds events together, and that's where we met. My husband's an Army chaplain. That's his like full-time job now. Um, Going through life as a younger person, I had some health challenges. And then it felt like I sort of like grew out of those, if you will, as I sort of reached like early adulthood. And then we started having our family, and life just got incredibly busy. I mean, we had four kids in 5 years, and then here we are 27 years later, and it's like, wow, how did all of that just go by so fast? Um, and during that time, I was working a lot of times full time, especially from 2012 on. I was working a very demanding, sort of like executive type role, 60-hour work weeks plus, that sort of thing, and did not prioritize my health at all. I mean, I no annual physicals. When I left that role in 2020 and I went to like my women's health doctor, they had archived all of my records and put them in storage. And my doctor was like about ready to retire. And they're like, oh great, you'll get
Oh,
to see
wow.
him one more time. And then, in 3 months he's retiring. And like
Oh.
I was like, wow, okay, that's crazy. And so then, coming out of that just really busy season of life and not prioritizing my health at all, in the last 2 years, um, There've just been repercussions of that. I've had a thyroid condition that I've sort of neglected for years, like probably close to 10 years. They discovered it 10 years ago. And then I think I went to one visit and one checkup. And then 8 years later in 2023, I'm like, I probably should go to an endocrinologist and see about that. Just some other things like, fibromyalgia type stuff. Because actually, when I met you in August, we were about ready to go to the Mayo Clinic
Oh wow.
for 2.5 weeks of testing. And at that point, I had no idea what was wrong with me. I just knew that I could barely function. I had already gone to like a 40% reduction in my work, like pay and my workload at work in Austin,
Oh
Texas,
wow.
where I lived at the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, I had just completely neglected my body and my health, even my mental health, because mental health is an aspect of that too. And you don't realize how important that is until you start dealing with chronic illnesses. And then, the mental health really starts kicking in of like the anxiety and depression of like, what is wrong with me and why can't I just get out of this and keep going forward? So yeah, I mean, it was a lot. It was quite a journey, and we went to the Mayo Clinic expecting like answers and quick fixes, and instead the answers were, you need to avoid stress, you need to pace yourself, you need to take a step back, and it's like, well, what does that even look like? Because
Yeah.
just have always prioritized my career above everything else, probably including my family, if I'm being honest.
Hmm. You know, I feel like it's really easy to do that. I would even say that like there's times where I do, and I try to be. I would say I try to be very mindful of that now, as
Hmm.
much as I can be, to say, maybe I should take a step back or put everything aside today and make sure we're spending just spend time with the family. Don't touch the phone today,
Yeah.
and be mindful of small things like that. So
Right.
through that journey,
Hmm.
are there some tips you would give to a young parent in terms of what you learned either through success or failure? Like if you had some things that were great that you would sustain, share those. And
Hmm.
if the things that you sacrificed, if you learned a better way to maybe approach that, would you think of and share some things like that?
Yeah, I would say diet and exercise are so important, and those are two things that I feel like it was easy to just neglect. And you're doing travel sports, and so you're eating out every other night of the week, and um, not if you're up half the night dealing with kid stuff, and then getting up early for the morning routine, and then headed to work, you're drinking too much caffeine, you're drinking a lot of sodas just to sort of get through your day. And now I find myself, forced to follow like a very regimented diet, because if I don't, I feel it. Like I feel it to where I almost like can't function the next day. And so it's just not worth it to do that. So, I avoid processed sugar, do the all organics, all the things like that. And then exercise is so important. Part of the diagnosis coming out of Mayo was I had COVID last April. I mean, I'd already had some health issues leading into that, but that's where I sort of fell off a cliff, literally. And they feel like, sort of like long COVID in nature is what they diagnosed me with. And I couldn't exercise to save my life. I would get on a treadmill or any piece of equipment and my heart rate would go through the roof, like just 160, 170 in under a minute. And not because I was really out of shape, because I could do that, 6 months prior. It was just because of the response my body had to COVID. And
Okay.
um, so really having an exercise routine of some sort and never giving that up is much easier than getting to pushing 50 and saying, okay, this is much harder to go back to. And, because now I'm pivoting to like yoga and other things like that. And I will say, I think yoga and meditation for a young mom would be so valuable. Just finding that peace, putting your, AirPods in and finding that sort of peace and quiet a few times a day,
Yeah.
as much as you can, just really center yourself. I'm big on. I wasn't really like a holistic person completely until going through this, and I found as much answers and relief in like the holistic, like acupuncture and other stuff like that, than I did in traditional medicine with dealing with some of this stuff.
Yeah. But I agree 100% with yoga. I have
Mhm.
incorporated yoga into my routine at least once or twice a week.
That's great.
Um, every time that I do yoga, my wife knows it. So when I like when we interact for the first time after I have done yoga,
Uh-huh.
she recognizes the difference in just
Huh.
me being like, I guess, calmer, a little more just relaxed and at peace and connected, I feel like.
Yep.
And
Yep.
she sees that and will point it out. She's like, "You did yoga
Mm.
today, didn't you?" And
Yeah.
it's incredible when you think about the interactions that you have with people and how somebody can notice a difference in you
Hmm.
from something like that.
Yeah. For sure. The meditation, journaling, things like that, of just intentionally getting up, even something as simple as eating breakfast. I went for years on a cup of coffee on my way out the door
Mhm.
instead of eating an intentional, like fueling my body for the day. Um, but things like that. I mean, it's just you have to prioritize yourself and your health above anything else.
Yeah. I do some I do some nutrition and fitness
Okay.
coaching, and when I talk to clients, what phrase that I love is take your food as medicine so you don't have to take medicine as your food later.
Yeah. There's a great book. It's called Eat to Beat Disease. Dr. Oh, I can't think of his name, but it's a great book. I read that somewhere in the last 2 years along this journey, and it breaks down all the different body processes and how they help you and tells you what to eat, just specifically like if you had cancer, here's the diet you should be eating. If you're having
Mhm.
this or that, hormone imbalances, whatever, this is how you should be tailoring your diet. Because it's absolutely true. I mean, the standard American diet is just horrible. I
Yeah.
mean, what a joke that they've been telling us for years to eat how many servings of grains a day, and like all the research is screaming the exact opposite. I mean, it's just so crazy.
Yeah, so well, that's a great topic, I feel like. So how has your diet and things shifted now?
Um,
Do you have any kind of like specific diet program that you follow? Do you count macronutrients? Like what's your approach to nutrition now?
sure. I don't count like calories or nutrients or anything like that, but I generally try to eat 100 grams of protein a day,
Okay.
and then structure everything else around it to be, you know, simple carbs, some grains, lots of fruits and vegetables, that sort of thing. And then I have
Mhm.
a pretty robust supplement regimen. So that would be too complex to go into. There's literally
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the weekly wellness calendar is on the fridge, and it's broken down by every segment of my day and what I
Mhm.
do, from diet and exercise standpoint.
Yeah. So a
And
lot
my
of
scheduled
intentionality.
breaks, yeah, scheduling breaks as well, because that's like
Oh yeah.
morning walk break, afternoon walk break, trying to get the 10,000 steps in a day, things like that.
Yep. Those are great things. Great things. And I mean, I always think of a lot of times people think, if I start eating right, working out right now, like I should see results right away.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes time. And
Yeah, it does.
especially if you've been out of that routine for a long
Hmm.
time,
Hmm.
that you didn't get where you are overnight. And so
Right.
you're not gonna fix it overnight. And
Yeah.
so I always tell people you're working for future you right now. You're not working
Hmm.
for tomorrow. You're working for 3, 6 months from now, maybe
Right.
more, depending on where you are.
Yeah,
And so
for
I
sure.
think that's a great point. Is like think about
Hmm.
what you're doing right now for you in the future.
Right. The state of your health right now is the result of a decade or more of how you treated your body and how you've prioritized or deprioritized your health,
Yeah.
for
And
sure.
a point that resonated when I'm thinking of like decisions that like we as parents we try to do things. We're like everything is about we love our children so much so we'll do anything
Hmm.
for them.
Hmm.
And we sometimes we sacrifice the health or the things that we know would be the right thing for ourselves, but
Hmm.
we do what is a little more comfortable or convenient in the moment because it's I mean sometimes it's absolutely necessary. Like there's almost not
Right.
even a way around it.
Hmm.
You can do your best to plan and be intentional, but sometimes it's not possible.
Sure.
And so I think it's having some grace, but at the same time, uh, having a requirement for yourself to be as intentional as possible.
Hmm.
I would say, like, if you can plan, plan. If you're, if you're not able to, then understand, like, this was a situation where we couldn't plan for this, and we do what we got to do in the situation,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Great advice that I heard from a life coach was always talk to yourself as if you were talking to your best friend. Like, what advice, what grace would you
Yeah.
extend to your best friend? And then apply that to yourself, because we're the hardest on ourselves. And then that's where you get into that negative, unhealthy cycle of, okay, yesterday didn't go as I wanted. Why should I even show up and try today? And then it snowballs into unhealthy eating,
Mhm.
Netflix at night to de-stress, and then that keeps you up half the night because you didn't sort of detox from the screen before you went to bed. And then that can really snowball for into like days, weeks, months of just unhealthy living, especially when you're talking about a busy family. And, I mean, it really is the accountability even of finding someone else to be your accountability partner to make sure you stay on that path too.
Oh yeah. And so where you're involved with Strong Bonds and help to teach at Strong Bonds events, would you say that either you have a favorite skill that you teach, or a favorite skill in general that you've seen at a Strong Bonds event that uh, you wish you had maybe learned that skill sooner, or that's been the most impactful in applying to your own relationships?
Yeah, wow. I wish we had had the opportunity to attend a the Seven Habits or the Speed of Trust early on in our marriage and with our kids when they were younger. There's just so much great content and materials there. A new one that I'm certified on as of last spring, but we've not led yet, is the emotional intelligence through
Okay.
Talent Smart is the provider there, and I'm hoping they start doing that more with the Strong Bonds events, because we've sort
Mhm.
of done the Seven Habits and Speed of Trust for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
But the emotional intelligence is a really great curriculum as well.
Okay. I'm gonna have to get to an event with that one. That's exciting.
Yep. Yeah, it is a really good program.
Okay. And so those events are only available for like military
Hmm.
families, right? So not available to everyone. Um, in terms of emotional intelligence, would there be like a tip from that module, or is there something that stands out in your mind that you would say, like, this is a great piece that you would take away from an emotional intelligence model?
Um, well, so I love that they do an assessment, and it's basically sort of gauging you on four different metrics. I'm paraphrasing this, but awareness of self, awareness of others, influence of self, and influence of others. That's sort of your four core pillars of emotional intelligence. And so you take the assessment and it ranks you or gives you a percentage sort of aptitude score, if you will, for each of the
Mhm.
four. Um, and they do a great job of sort of breaking down the four and giving a ton of tips and interactive exercises on how to work through the different concepts. And then at the end, you actually do your sort of game plan, if you will, of
Mhm.
under those four categories, here's my bottom, let's call it 6 or 8 skills that I need to work on as the highest priority. And then you actually map out your game plan of what you're going to do coming out of the session. So I just thought it was a really great, and the facilitators, at least that's, because you have to take the class and they give you the
Right.
facilitator notes over like a 2-day period, and then you get your certificate at the end. And so
Mhm.
we took the class that we now can lead, and they were just really great. The company that puts it on was really great.
Okay. I like that. That sound anything where it's like just building awareness on an opportunity to
Hmm.
improve. Like, I'm a big fan of.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm thinking through the journey, and so you recognize that there are like some health sacrifices that you made earlier on, and we said nutrition and exercise, like those are the big things. But understanding how busy parenthood is, and like, let's say we got a bunch of practices, we got 2 to 4 kids or so. For a parent in that situation, kids have practice, we're running all over the place doing things. Do you how would you try to squeeze those things in to your routine, understanding what you do now?
So I would say going through this journey, the most important thing that I've learned is that family has to be the highest priority, and you have to set boundaries around that. Um, Looking back on raising 4 kids, I really bought into the mindset that everybody else's kids is in every travel team and on every team and in every club and in the choir and orchestra and this and that. And suddenly you've overcommitted your life to where every night of the week is blocked off, especially with four kids. I mean, four kids,
Oh yeah.
we were picking winners and losers with our kids sometimes of like, okay, let's compare the schedule and like, well, this one gets this one and this parent goes to this kids. And then, child number three is just out of luck. I mean, maybe we can get the
Oh yeah.
grandparents to show up, but we had to actually pick which kids didn't have a parent at their event because
Oh
everybody had something going on 5 nights a week.
yeah.
Um, and I would say, as much as possible as a parent, don't buy into that mentality that your family has to have that and that you're so overscheduled. It's like the seven habits. I know you've gone through that with strong bonds, but put first things first. The big rocks video, if you put the big rocks in first and then you put the gravel and then you put the sand and then you put the water in, you can fit a whole lot in your glass. But if you don't put the big rocks in first, being faith and family, and other things like that as the highest priority, it won't happen.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's a really good point. I'm thinking just my personal situation because my kids are younger. I'm here
Okay.
right now. My daughter is 7, my
Okay.
son is 4,
Mhm.
and we're almost already falling into that where my daughter has dance at least 3 nights a week, sometimes more because it's competitive dance, and when they come close
Mhm.
to competition, they get extra practices.
Yeah.
And then my son is 4, and we've already had him in t-ball for the last 2 years. During the t-ball seasons, he's playing like 2 nights a week.
Right.
But when you start to look at that, we're already splitting up 4
Mhm.
practices. And I think there's a really, I love being involved in sports because I think there's so many great things to learn
Mhm.
from that. So, like, what is the right balance
Mhm.
or prioritization of those things? Of like, we want them involved
Right.
so that they are connecting with people and building relationships and learning all of these character strengths and skills that you can get from those things,
Right.
but not overdoing it so that they can enjoy their childhood and that we can enjoy time together as a family. And it's not always just run
Mhm.
to practice. And what are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, and it's not easy finding that balance, and there's so much peer pressure there in that the sort of
Yeah.
parent community to have your kids overextended and this, that, and the other. And it only gets worse as they get to middle school and then high school, because like basketball is when they're younger, is like 2, 3 nights a week right after school. And then middle school turns into 5 nights a week, a couple hours after school lets out. And then high school turns into 5 nights a week, practices on both days of the weekend, every major holiday, to where you just don't have, your time's not your own. um, so it's hard. I mean, every family has to sort of prioritize what's most important. Our youngest played a year of college basketball, and she started playing basketball when she was 5 for like YMCA rec leagues, and
Mhm.
it was her life. And so she was always pushing to do more because she loved it so much. And so I think there's an element of, you need to also be checking in with your children, because some parents are living out their dreams,
Yeah, very true. Very true.
vicariously through their children, instead of saying, okay, is this what you even want? And so, for her, it was always more trying to pull her back and like, okay, we can't overcommit. Some of the other kids, it was an easy decision of, okay, my son wanted to quit sports after 8th grade, and it was like, okay, you can just do music and piano. And he wanted to do more like piano, cello, things like that. So he did that, and that was his path. And I think that's great. So, and I will say the daughter that it was all basketball from age 5 played not quite a full freshman year season, scholarship player, tore her meniscus and ACL. And we had put all our eggs in one basket of
Mhm.
basketballs and a pay for college. I mean, she was a governor scholar, and we literally did not send her to the governor scholar program
Oh my
because she
gosh.
had to be seen by recruiters at all these summer tournaments. And
Mhm.
then come to find out, man, that governor scholar on your resume would have looked really good when you pivoted out of the school you were at to go to a different school and
Mhm.
had to apply for scholarships as a, sort of a sophomore after freshman year,
Right.
transfer student. So it's hard to balance all of that, and again, that's probably one of my biggest regrets, was not prioritizing the family time more and saying no to like all the external activities.
That's a really good point too. And I like that approach of talk to the kids and see what
Hmm.
their where their passions are,
Hmm.
and encourage and help support those things without trying to force your own agenda as much as you can. Like, I played
Yeah.
basketball. I would love for my kids to play basketball,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it's really not about basketball. I want them to have the connection and just a joy and fulfillment from something that I
Yes.
was able to experience with basketball. And I
Right.
think if we can learn to take that approach,
Hmm.
uh, I think that can make a difference for sure.
Yeah, because the teammate aspect, being a teammate, winning, losing. I mean, there's so many important lessons to be learned from sports. Our son's a Air Force officer now, but he did the ROTC scholarship program at Kentucky, and almost didn't get accepted into the scholarship program because he didn't have a high school sport on his resume.
Oh wow.
And we had to really play up the whole first chair cello and stuff like that as his sort of team sport, if you will, on the,
Yeah.
the military application. And the army rejected him. He applied for a scholarship with the Army and with the Air Force, and the Army said pass, and the Air Force gave him a scholarship. So,
All right. Well, look, that's what was meant to be then.
but yeah.
Okay. Well, so we're getting close to the end of part one, but there's something really cool that you have been working on. I want to make sure we at least mention in this episode, and that is your children's book. And so I don't want to get into the concept. I want to save that for part two.
Okay.
But what's the name of it? Is it already available? Where can people find that? And is there anything else that you would like to promote or that you have going on?
Yeah, the book is still was basically written, but now I need to find a good illustrator to help me really build
Okay.
that out. The name of it is Jackson's Big Move,
Okay.
and it's loosely based on our 10-year-old pet cat, Jackson. Um, and we sort of, our most recent move from Fort Cavazos back to Kentucky, it's loosely based on that. So I took some really great photos of just his worry and concern and all of that. And so that's going to be the main character, if you will, in the book.
Okay. When's the goal to have this released?
By the end of 2025.
All right. We will
Yep.
be looking for it for sure.
Okay.
And so with that, for part one, I just want to say, thank you for sharing your time and your health journey to help other people grow. Like, time is our most valuable asset. That's what we're talking about in terms of giving that
Hmm.
time to your family in this episode.
Yeah.
And your time today to help others really means a lot. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. And so, to everybody else, thank you all for tuning in, allowing us to be a part of your journey. Make sure you go like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts and questions to join the conversation, and let's grow.